and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We have no further details about the object at this time, including any description of its capabilities, purpose, or origin. The object was about the size of a small car, so not similar in size or shape to the high-altitude surveillance balloon that was taken down off the coast of South Carolina on February 4. Separately, U.S. Northern Command continues their recovery operations in support of the recent takedown of the Chinese high-altitude surveillance balloon. Recovery teams have mapped the debris field and are in the process of searching for and identifying debris on the ocean floor. Debris that's been recovered so far is being loaded onto vessels, taken ashore, cataloged, and then moved onwards to labs for subsequent analysis. And while I won't go into specifics due to classification reasons, I can say that we have located a significant amount of debris so far that will prove helpful to our further understanding of this balloon and its surveillance capabilities. Of note, due to less than favorable sea states right now, teams will continue to conduct underwater survey and recovery as conditions permit. The department wants to thank our interagency partners from the U.S. Coast Guard, the FBI, and state and local authorities for their continuing assistance and partnership. In other news, and I think this is important that we remember, a lot of folks and people in Turkey and Syria right now are suffering. We want to, again, express our support for the people of Turkey and Syria as they respond to the deadly earthquakes that struck there earlier this week. In support of ongoing U.S. assistance efforts spearheaded by the U.S. Agency for International Development, U.S. European Command has positioned personnel, equipment, and a range of assets to aid the government of Turkey and its continued search and rescue efforts. This includes the U.S. Navy's George H.W. Bush Carrier Strike Group, repositioning to the Eastern Mediterranean Sea to provide logistics, medical, and rotary airlift support if required. Additionally, U.S. Army rotary wing aircraft began flying missions out of Incirlik Air Base in Turkey on February 7 to transport first responders to the most affected populations. And on February 8th, UH-60 Blackhawks transported injured civilians to a local medical facility. U.S. European Command has designated U.S. Naval Forces Europe and Africa as the lead component command overseeing the EUCOM humanitarian assistance and disaster relief efforts within Turkey. To aid in that coordination, U.S. Marine Corps Brigadier General Andrew Priddy, U.S. Naval Amphibious Forces Europe Commander and 2nd Marine Expeditionary Brigade Commanding General arrived in Turkey February 9 to lead military coordination efforts with U.S. agencies involved in the humanitarian aid and disaster relief efforts. We'll continue to provide you with updates as we receive them. EUCOM will be issuing a press release with further details. But again, we offer our thoughts and prayers to the people of Turkey and Syria during this tragic and difficult time. And finally, Secretary Austin welcomed Canadian Minister of National Defense Anand for a bilateral meeting here in the Pentagon today. The Secretary expressed his thanks and appreciation to Minister Anand for the cooperation rendered by Canada in tracking the PRC high-altitude surveillance balloon that violated the sovereignty of both of our countries. During the meeting, both leaders reaffirmed the close defense relationship between the United States and Canada, and a readout will be available later today on defense.gov. And with that, I will take your questions. We'll start with Associated Press, Tara Kopp.
Hi, thank you for doing this. A couple of questions on this latest shoot down. First, what type of U.S. fighter aircraft were used, and what type of munition did they fire? And do you already have Navy assets or Coast Guard assets involved in a recovery process? And then I have a few more.
Thanks, Tara. So the aircraft that took down the object was an F-22 flying out of Joint Base Elmendorf in Alaska. It employed an AIM-9X to take down the object. In terms of assets that are currently involved, in terms of recovery, we have HC-130, HH-60, and CH-47 aircraft participating in that recovery effort.
Okay. You mentioned there was a reasonable threat. Was there also a threat to potentially this object detecting some of our more sensitive radar capabilities that are based in Alaska? And then what hasn't been said is where this object has come from. Is there any indication that this was also a Chinese surveillance balloon object, whatever it is?
Yeah, so at this point, we don't know the origin of the object. Again, we will know more once we're able to potentially recover some of those materials. But the primary concern, again, was the potential hazard to civil flight. And so, again, we'll know more later. Thank you.
No perceived threat to any of the radar installations that we have based in Alaska?
Again, right now, we'll know more once we assess it. We'll just leave it at that. Thank you. Liz.
What made this?
Thank you.
Thanks for taking my question. What made this threatening enough to shoot down? What is different about this object than the last object that was over Alaska? Because it was chosen not to shoot the last one down over Alaska.
Yeah. So, the important thing to understand here is anytime we detect anything, we're going to, first of all, observe it and then make a decision and take appropriate action. So you have to look at each individual case on its own merits. In this particular case, given the fact that it was operating at an altitude that posed a reasonable threat to civilian air traffic, the determination was made and the president gave the order to take it down.
Was there a specific threat, a specific civilian air traffic incident that could have happened?
Again, as you well know, civilian aircraft operate, at a variety of ranges up to 40 to 45,000 feet. So again, there was a reasonable concern that this could present a threat to or a potential hazard to civilian air traffic. So let me.
Just one more question.
Yep.
Has Secretary Austin reached out to his Chinese counterpart or any other counterparts at all since this has been tracked?
Since this particular object, no. Let me go here, and then I'll come over to Oren.
Now that most of the significant amount of things from the previous balloon have been recovered, what additional information you have now about the capabilities of that balloon?
Yeah, so we're continuing to assess that. Again, I'm not able to go into more detail other than, in addition to learning a lot about the balloon and the capabilities that it has while it was over the continental United States, we have identified or located a significant amount of debris on the ocean floor that will be very beneficial to us learning more about it. But at this point in time, I'm not going to have more details.
Manufacturing label on these equipments or the balloons indicate that they're all manufactured in China, sourced from China.
Again, I'm not going to have details to provide it at this point in time.
Also say that
Last
39 other countries have indicated they have seen balloons in their territories. Are you sharing those information from the Pentagon to these countries, or the capabilities, how you shot them down?
So in terms of what we're learning about these balloons, I know the State Department has talked to this in terms of our international outreach. Certainly, the Department of Defense plays a role in those relationships. And so we will continue to work with our allies and partners to share information along with our State Department colleagues. Let me go to Oren.
Two questions. First, did this object show any signs of maneuverability or propulsion? And then you and other Pentagon officials made a big deal about how much intelligence was gathered by letting the other one float across much of the United States, and yet you shot this one down before it entered the United States. Is that the Pentagon bowing to political pressure? Was there nothing to gain from this one?
Yeah, so again, we're going to judge each of these on its merits. No indication at this time that it was maneuverable, but again, we'll know more. And in terms of entering the United States, it did enter U.S. airspace, and we took it down.
Did you gain intelligence from this one as you did from the previous one?
We're going to recover what we can from this, and more to follow.
And was the decision to shoot it down before it entered too far into the U.S. airspace, the Pentagon bowing to political pressure from the Hill?
Look, again, we're going to judge each of these objects on its own merits. It entered into U.S. airspace on February 9th. We sent up aircraft to assess what it was. The decision was made that it posed a reasonable threat to civilian air traffic. The president gave the order to take it down, and we took it down. Thank you, Laura. And then I'll go to Dan.
Thanks. Sorry. Thanks for taking my question. So a couple questions. First of all, has anything like this happened before with an object this size, this shape in this particular height for the 40,000 foot range? Has it happened before? And then second of all, can you say more about why you knew that last balloon or object was from China, whereas this one you don't know?
So in terms of this particular object, again, as I highlighted, we don't know where it's from. It posed a reasonable threat to civilian air traffic, and so the determination was made to take it down. In terms of the other balloon, As I mentioned in our previous briefing, we have learned a lot about the Chinese surveillance high altitude balloon program. We've gathered a lot of information over the last couple of years, and so we were able to, based on that information, detect at a very early stage. As it approached U.S. airspace, we had a good understanding of what it was. As I mentioned, we were able to monitor that closely, track it while it went over the continental United States, learn a lot about it, and take it down at the appropriate time.
So would you urge us to put this in a different bucket than that, or should we?
Yeah, I think I was pretty clear. This was traveling at about 40,000 feet, which posed a reasonable threat to civilian air traffic, and the decision was made to take it down. So, Dan.
When the pilots approached it, and they determined, I understand that it was not manned. How did they determine that? And at that point, wouldn't it be possible to at least describe what they were looking at? Did it resemble a balloon or an airplane or what?
Again, we'll know more and have more information once we've recovered this. I will give credit to our pilots that they're very capable in terms of looking at an object, assessing whether or not this had the potential to be manned at that altitude, something that small. Very, very unlikely that it was manned. And so, again, no indication that it was manned, presented a potential reasonable threat to civilian air traffic, and we took it down.
What speed was it traveling at, by the way?
I don't have that information.
All right, we've been listening to Pentagon Press Secretary, Air Force Brigadier General Patrick Ryder hold a briefing about a high-altitude object shot down earlier today. And it was taken down over Alaskan airspace at approximately 1:45 p.m. Eastern. He said a significant amount of debris had already been recovered and taken onto vessels to be analyzed.
The press secretary said this was roughly the size of a small car, matching what we just heard from the White House today. The origin of this object remains unknown. They are not saying it is from China just yet because they need to collect the debris. But they say the decision to shoot this down, which was made by President Biden, was done so because it posed a reasonable threat to civilian aircraft in the region. We're going to continue to listen into this press briefing and bring you any other updates as they come to us.
Right now, let's go to senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang joining us now from the White House. So Weijia, walk us through what we learned about President Biden's involvement in the discovery of this object.
So we know that it was first spotted, or the military first detected it last night, and the president was briefed immediately. It was then that there were, planes that were able to go up immediately and try to get an understanding of what this was. Then that happened again this morning. And John Kirby, a spokesperson here at the White House who used to speak on behalf of the Pentagon, so he's very familiar with these sorts of things, told us that it was this morning that the president, at the recommendation of Pentagon officials, ordered the object be shot down. But there's so much that we do not know, guys. And, I think the White House is being really careful not to draw comparisons between this object and the Chinese spy balloon. First, in its size, we just heard it's about the size of a small car. We knew that the Chinese spy balloon was about the length of 1,500 by 1,500 football fields. We knew that it was from China. In this case, the White House says they don't know not only the origin, Errol, but also whether it is state-owned, whether it's privately owned. They have no idea who is responsible for this object. They don't even know what it is. Kirby was really careful not to call it a balloon in the briefing. They just don't have enough information about what it is. So there's still a lot of questions about, what it was doing there. But the bottom line that the White House wants to take away today is that the president ordered this be shot down because they believe there was a reasonable threat to civilian aircraft, and they were not willing to wait to learn more about this object in the air before shooting it down.
And Weijia, the phrase that jumps out to me right now is, boy, what difference a week makes, right? So at this moment, you've got this announcement from the White House and the Pentagon effectively back to back. hours after an object was shot down. Rewind to a week ago, where this much larger balloon, spy balloon from China, was floating from Alaska over the mountain states before it was there was a debate apparently about if and when to shoot it down. And in the past few days, as Elaine was mentioning earlier, you had Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, you had Senator John Tester of Montana voicing their displeasure with either not being looped in on these decisions for the previous for the spy balloon, and saying there is a real national security issue. So while they didn't seem to answer questions about, well, are you now buckling to political pressure, there is a different political climate in Washington as we absorb this news.
You're right. The administration received a mountain of criticism for, allowing that Chinese balloon to enter U.S. airspace in the first place, and B, for waiting a week before shooting it down and allowing it to go over at least 5 military sites. And so perhaps, we do not know, but perhaps that pressure, played a role in how quickly the president decided and Pentagon officials decided to shoot this object down. But we do want to be really careful because, again, we just do not know what it was doing. They know now that that balloon was in fact trying to surveil sensitive information from these military sites and trying to spy on communication and commands. So in this case, we don't know exactly what happened, and you could sense that the White House, really in its very early stages of this doesn't have those answers yet, because it happened in the past hour or two, I should say. So it's, the pieces are still being recovered, and it's going to take quite some time, not only to gather all those pieces, but then to study them and understand. But one thing that is really interesting, Errol, is that the administration will not commit to saying that this is now the policy, that if there is, a suspicious object flying in the air at this altitude, which is 40,000 feet or 60,000 feet, that they're just going to shoot it down. Would not say that, but rather, the spokespeople say that they'll take it case by case, that it's really sensitive. But in this particular case, the president thought there was enough of a threat to make the order to bring it down.
All right, Weijia Jiang on the North Lawn of the White House for us. Weijia, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, we want to take you back now to the Pentagon, where that briefing is still taking place. Let's listen.
Let me get a couple other folks here. Mike, and then over.
Thank you, Pat. The only reason the American people know about the first balloon is because a couple of guys in Montana spotted it and it leaked out. My question is, if it had remained secret and had not become a spectacle and arguably an embarrassment to the White House, would you have shot it down or allowed it to continue on its way?
So you're asking me to speculate? So Mike, I'll kind of just push back a little bit at the assertion there. So first of all, again, what made this balloon different was the length and duration that it was over the continental United States. Look, we track activities all over the globe on a daily basis, some of which will remain classified because, again, we don't want to reveal sources and methods. In this particular case, I can tell you that there were efforts underway to make that public. Montana journalists reporting notwithstanding. All that to say, look, there are going to be times when there's activities happening that we're monitoring that we're not going to go public, especially if it doesn't present a particular or pose a significant threat to the American public. But again, as we monitored that balloon, there was an effort underway to ensure that folks understood what this was, especially given how visible it was. And I'll just stop there. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, General. First, a really quick follow-up on Tony's question. At this point, is the Pentagon reassessing the need for counter balloon or counter object capabilities at that altitude at this time?
So what I would tell you is not, in the Air Force, sometimes we talk about don't get platform specific, right? So what we're talking about is monitoring the domain and having domain awareness. And again, as I highlighted, seems like a couple days ago, probably last week, we're continuing to learn more about this program, which enables us to identify and track objects. and thus ensure that we're continuing to protect our skies and our airspace.
Thank you.
So
And
thank
then, real quick, first, do you and Admiral Kirby know the shape of this new object? And if so, what is sort of the reason for why you can't share its shape before it was shot down? And then separately, how is the recovery efforts of this new object downed over ice different from the one downed over the coast and water? And are you guys using unmanned systems for this new object as well?
Yeah, thank you. So in terms of the shape, I don't know. I have not seen any imagery of it. I'm just telling you the verbal characteristics as it was described to me. In terms of the difference in the recovery effort, I mean, again, so this literally was, what, an hour and a half, 2 hours ago. So that's underway right now. So more to follow on that front. Right now, I think they're moving to the site. We'll have more to follow in the days ahead. Let me go to a few other folks here. Sorry. Some new folks back here, and then we'll go over here to Mike.
You mentioned that the object was spotted yesterday. Is that the first that we saw it, or did we see it coming in a couple days before?
No, it was spotted yesterday.
And for follow up, did what we learned about the first balloon last week? Did that help us detect this object?
I would say that again, when we detect objects. Well, let me just back up. So what you're asking is, did what we learned from the PRC balloon help us track this? Kind of a little bit of apples and oranges, right? In terms of NORAD Northcom maintains the ability to track objects. So again, they tracked this as it approached and entered into U.S. airspace. Again, we're still assessing what this object was. So I don't know that we learned anything new as a result of that, other than, again, I think we're all, to include the media and the public, very attuned to balloons at the moment. So thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. And just to clarify, so this was first identified when it flew into U.S. airspace, is that correct? Or was it identified before it?
It was detected yesterday. And then again, NORAD sent up aircraft to observe it, see what it was, and then the decision was made to take it down.
And do you have any information whether this object flew over any other sovereign nations or countries?
I do not. Okay. I have time for a few more. Let me go to Joe.
Question about the recovery effort. I think you'd mentioned at the outset that it was going to involve rotary wing aircraft. That's because it landed on ice as opposed to water. That's why there isn't watercraft being used. Is it?
Yeah, Joe, we'll get you more information on that front. Again, this happened just a short while ago, and so according to Northcom, these are the assets that were being used to go out and do the initial recovery. But we'll have more information in terms of the various roles and responsibilities of those.
Just to get down in the weeds for a second, any idea what units are involved in the recovery effort or in the F-22 that shot it down?
We can get you that information. Thanks. Phil?
Hey there, just a couple clarification questions. First off, when you first identified it, was it traveling at the same altitude, around 40,000 feet? Did you at that point know its velocity? And secondly, doesn't Northcom have the authority on its own to shoot down unidentified objects entering U.S. airspace if they pose a threat to civilian air traffic? And if so, then why was the president's authorization required in this case?
Yeah, thanks. So my understanding is it was at 40,000 feet when it was detected and ultimately taken down. The NORAD Northcom commander does not have the authority necessarily to take down an object if it's not posing a potential hostile intent or actions. However, given the fact that this aircraft was, this object was operating at an altitude that posed a reasonable threat to civilian air traffic, after consultation with the secretary and the president, and of course the president, on our advice, gave the order to take it down, and we took it down.
I guess I'm trying to clarify, is his authorization required in a situation like this?
again, it's kind of a moot point at this point because the president gave the order, but he has the authorization to take action against anything that presents a potential threat to the American public or people on the ground. In this particular case, it was determined that this posed a reasonable threat to air traffic. Again, I'll just leave it at that. Thanks. Tara?
Just a couple of clarifiers. Was it a single F-22 or a pair that were up today for the shot? And then when NORAD sent the initial aircraft up to sea, was there any sort of hailing or any type of warning given? Typically, when an aircraft makes an incursion into protected airspace, there's a whole lot of procedures that have to be followed before it would escalate to something like this.
Okay, well, this was an object, right? So it wasn't an aircraft per se. And to answer your earlier question, it was a two-ship of F-22s, but one aircraft took the shot. Got time for one more. Go to Liz.
Thank you so much. Really quick, when it was started to be tracked last night, were you able to tell what direction it was coming from?
This was traveling in a northeasterly direction when it was taken down.
And then one more, the aircrafts that were observing it, what type of aircrafts were those?
I'll have to come back to you on. I think I know, but I don't want to make it up from the podium. So we'll come back to you on that one. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate it.
All right, we've been listening to Pentagon Press Secretary, Air Force Brigadier General Patrick Ryder hold a briefing about a high-altitude object shot down earlier today. It was flying at an altitude of 40,000 feet and taken down in northern Alaska near the Canadian border. Joining us now to talk more about this is Michael Swain. He is the director of the East Asia program at the Quincy Institute. He's also a fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. Welcome, Michael. So based on what we know right now, and there are still many questions that have yet to be answered, what are your thoughts based on your own experience? Because we have to underscore that at this point, U.S. has not said where they believe this object, this second object, has come from. But what is your sense, based on what we've heard so far, about this particular object?
Hi, thanks. Just a very quick correction. I'm no longer at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace.
Oh,
and
apologies.
It's okay. I'm a senior research fellow at the Quincy Institute, so fine, in the East Asia program. What's my sense of this? Well, my impression is we don't know a whole lot here. We certainly don't know if this is a Chinese object. We don't know if it has been, if it's a surveillance object, what kind of object it is at all. It's apparently an unmanned object. It's of some size, I guess not a balloon. It's not an aircraft, apparently. So you're left with maybe a drone, a fairly sizable drone that was shot down over U.S. territory. Because of what's happened with the balloon, this has obviously made this into a much, much, much higher visibility topic than I think it might deserve. I understand why it's being covered so intensively by the media, but we just don't know enough to make certain conclusions at this point. I wouldn't conclude that it's necessarily sent by the Chinese. I wouldn't conclude necessarily that it's been deliberately sent by the senior leadership of China. In fact, I don't think that the balloon that went over the United States recently was probably not, I think that was probably not sent by Xi Jinping. I think it was probably part of a much larger program that has been underway for some time by China. And this object could be part of that, but we simply don't know. I think it's important for the United States to show that it has domain awareness in this case, that it does know when there are unidentified objects flying over the United States. But I think it really shows the need to establish some kind of ground rules, some kind of understanding with other countries about this issue, that specifically probably with the Chinese themselves, since they do have a large surveillance program. And by the way, in the past and currently, the United States also has air surveillance programs. Some people talk as if this is a unique event, that this happened over the United States and the United States would not have done such a thing. The United States has been putting aircraft and drones over other people's territorial airspace for years in various ways. So we have to, I think, get a grip on this issue. We have to really seriously look at what is the threat, and we have to engage with the Chinese on this. to make sure this thing doesn't keep happening over and over, and also make sure that it doesn't serve as a way of just hyping the relationship and making it that much more difficult to manage with the Chinese.
And Michael, you're giving us some great context here. There is so much we don't know about this most recent object that has been shot down. But as you identify, it is coming in the wake of the Chinese spy balloon, where there was public debate and delay before it was shot down. It is part of a larger international Chinese spy program. And it has led to this, which is at the very least an effort by the White House and the administration to, as you say, demonstrate domain awareness and show that it can act decisively. So what has changed in your view, considering that, as you say, both countries spy on each other, and there may be a US program we all don't know about as far as spying on China, but what has changed in the relationship now between these two nations, considering that this type of thing is happening more frequently?
Well, what's changed is that we have a much deeper level of distrust on both sides of this relationship, and a tendency for individuals on both sides to make use of incidents like this that occur to increase public concern, increase, I would say in some cases, public fear, to raise up higher concerns about China and for the Chinese to do the same about us. And it feeds what we're in right now between our two countries, which is a kind of vicious cycle. We both tend to assume the worst about the other, and then we both tend to react on that basis, which in turn causes the other side to do even more. And we have to get out of this vicious cycle. And the only way to do this is to start having meaningful conversations between each other, which is what Secretary of State Blinken, I think, was intending to do in going over to Beijing. He has to get back over to Beijing, and he has to engage with the Chinese on this. And the Chinese have to be more forthright themselves. I don't believe that it was simply a weather balloon that came over the U.S. It probably was part of a surveillance program. But exactly how that happened, who directed it, what are you going to do in the future to try and control this and make it so that it doesn't keep on pushing the relationship in ever more distrustful directions? That has to be addressed. We really have to get serious about this.
But if I take what you've just said, higher distrust, less communication as far as the head of the U.S. military trying to communicate with his counterpart in China, that all to me sums up to a more dangerous dynamic between the two nations.
Oh, sure. Of course. It is a more dangerous dynamic. I mean, we have a situation here where we really need to establish a routine, regular rate of interaction with each other, do so on the basis of something less than sort of the worst case assumption about what the other side may be doing. Has to be professional, it has to be pragmatic, and it has to be regular, fairly regular. And we're not doing any of that. It's so much of this is being influenced by political dynamics within both countries and by certain agendas that different groups and leaders have within each country. I think we really need to recognize here that the US and China are on a trajectory in many ways that is going to lead to some kind of a crisis that's much more serious than this, probably over Taiwan in the future. And we need to be able to stop this trend and stop this trajectory towards greater and greater confrontation. The only way to do that is not by just pouring on more and more vitriol, more and more military defense, more and more deterrence. We've got to be able to establish the right balance between both deterring and reassuring each other about our intentions so that we don't make these kind of worst case assumptions that could lead to crisis or worse.
Michael, I'm curious about your assessment of a recent military move, U.S. military move. Maybe didn't get a lot of attention, but the United States recently, very publicly actually, looked to expand essentially its presence in some military bases in Asia. I'm thinking of Defense Secretary Austin's visit to Manila, in which there was this announcement of an agreement here at a time when we know that disputed South China Sea territory has been a point of contention and a heated contention for, I think, more than a decade now, as China has basically built up its sort of artificial islands, military complex in that area. How do you think that was received? Could there potentially be a connection between what we saw there, which was a reaffirming of a military relationship and alliance between an Asian country, the Philippines, and the United States, and what we saw take place with that spy balloon being detected over the United States?
I don't think an honest answer to that is we simply don't know. I mean, there could possibly be a connection there, but if there is a connection, I doubt, as I said before, that this is a linkage that has been made at the most senior levels of the Chinese government for a deliberate kind of, if you want to call it tit for tat for what the U.S. has done in the Philippines. If it is done in that way, and there is a connection, it would be by the PLA, the Chinese military. And if they were to do this, I don't think the senior leadership in China would be terribly happy about this kind of a tit for tat situation, especially as it occurred on the very eve of Secretary of State Blinken traveling to China. I mean, Xi Jinping had very explicitly said he was vested in this meeting. He wanted to have a good meeting with the United States on this. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for the Chinese senior leadership to be doing this at this time as a deliberate provocation or payback to the United States. As I say, it could be something that's being done at lower levels of the system, either part as a routine regular surveillance program or by the Chinese military. But if it's the latter, then the civilian leadership needs to establish greater levels of control over the PLA to make sure that their behavior does not upend and interact with the diplomatic interactions that are going on between the U.S. and China. That's really critical.
Incredibly high stakes. And it does raise questions, as you know, Michael, about what might be happening domestically within China's own political system. Michael Swain, thank you very much for sharing your insight and expertise with us.
You're welcome.
We are going to take a quick break, but we'll have more on this straight ahead. You're streaming CBS News.
I'm gonna come back to it. Let me run it real quick on my phone, so whenever they go back to the video, I can have when they go back to the news. I do want to not talk and let them talk because this is interesting. This is interesting. I have no words. I think things are gonna get real interesting. I think things are gonna get real interesting. This is the second. I guess the second one here. I know it was one in Latin America, but I think the second here in the U.S. and they spotted it yesterday. It sounds like last night. And they shot it down. But yeah, I mean, I want to ask everybody to come up, but I want to keep this stream going. So we can all kind of what I like about what I'm doing. And if they shut me down, y'all just will start a new live. But I don't think it's a problem, fair use, if this is something that's being streamed on YouTube. Worst case scenario, what's another plan? We can have a private meeting and all of us can come together. But I want to bring people in to see all this. Y'all, this is going to be interesting. I want us to, like I said, I want us to sit and listen and dialogue in the chat. That's why I want to do this, because we can all kind of talk through it. Share this with anybody, get people to come in. Let's get these numbers up. This is something we should be watching together. I'll say that much. I'm sorry, my allergies are bothering me. But my thing is, they constantly shooting these things down. And it sounds like they actually shot this one down over waters. I don't know if the last one they shot it down, it was over a body of water. But I think this one, they shot it down over a body of water. What's in these spy bubbles? That's my question. Or these spy drones, whatever they got. But they went from saying it was a balloon the size of a small car to the other guy saying it wasn't a balloon, it was a drone. I think they all need to come together collectively and get their stories together. Yep, they need to get their stories together, because this ain't this. Now y'all just one person saying something, another person saying another thing. I think they're afraid. I think they know some things I think it's some things that we don't know that they've done, and the aftermath of it is now surfacing. Okay, it's back on, y'all.
this morning on critical infrastructure in the Kharkiv and Zaporizhia regions.
Ukraine's Air Force claims it shot
Okay.
down 61 out of 71 missiles and 5 Iranian-made drones. The attack caused widespread power outages across many parts of the country. This comes one day.
Y'all, it's so much going on. It's so much going on. I mean, ain't nobody. I'm gonna say this. One thing I'm not is, and I'm not saying anybody's saying this, but I'm not worried. I think it's interesting. I'm gonna drop the link. And see what people think. I'm kind of monitoring the news from my phone. So I guess they're done talking about it because it's no longer, they're talking about the missiles over the Ukraine. Hold on, I'm dropping the link. Anybody that wants to come up, they welcome to come. I'm just listening to it through my headphones to see if anything interesting pops up. But yeah, this is gonna be interesting. Hold on, interesting. Hold on, I'm gonna pin the link. Y'all, excuse me, my allergies are bothering me. Did somebody go into timeout? Uh-oh. All right. Oh, ain't nobody shutting down 150 chats. That's fine. I've had people that shut me down with a lot less, sir. So, hey, that's fine. But with that being said, whoever wants to come up there, welcome to come up. This is this gonna be interesting. I got some water. Actually, I got some orange juice, so I need to drink some water. But this is interesting. The thing is, it's like one story is being told and another one is being told, and nobody's coming collectively together and saying it's something. Have y'all ever seen the movie? And they said, what movie was it? With Cusack, and he said, when they say don't worry is when you need to be worried. I'm not worried, but you know, I mean, they have to be very careful with their communication, because if they start screaming something's going on, it's gonna lead to mass hysteria. So they have to be very careful with that. Let me see what else they're saying. Let me check out Fox News. Somebody said check out Fox News. All right. Let's see. I like Fox News though, y'all. I'm gonna be honest. Fox News sometimes can be hilarious. Oh, Fox News is talking about it. They're talking about Super Bowl, right? Oh, I can show y'all the beginning of it. Hold on. Oh, is this one it? Let me make sure I got the right one up. Oh, okay, here we go. Now, this is the beginning report. This is when they first reported it, because I saw it pop up on my iPad that another drone had been shot down. So I'm gonna play what Fox News was talking about when they first came out with this news. This, like I said, this just came out like what time? How long ago? This was about 40 minutes ago. So this is recent that this has transpired. Again, they spotted another spy balloon over Alaska, and Biden ordered for it to be shot down, and they did that today. And I think the balloon came over yesterday. So they say balloon, drone, they don't know. So here we go.
The president has personal experience working with President Lula from his time as vice president, and they met several times and have had multiple calls. President
Biden will deliver remarks ahead of the one-year anniversary of Russia's brutal and unprovoked invasion of Ukraine, addressing how the United States has rallied the world to support the people of Ukraine as they defend their freedom and democracy. and how we will continue to stand with the people of Ukraine for as long as it takes. With that, my colleague John Kirby from the NSC is going to come up and share some words and take some questions.
Afternoon, everybody. Just a couple things here at the top. I think you know President Lula from Brazil is here today. We'll be meeting with the president soon. He's looking forward to that discussion. Brazil is a key partner of the United States in a region that is also a critically important region and an ally as we work together to address common challenges throughout the world, quite frankly, not just in this part of it. The president has personal experience working with President Lula from his time as vice president, and they met several times and have had multiple calls. And we, of course, as you know, we've already held a number of high-level engagements since President Lula's election. President Biden called President Lula shortly after he was elected to congratulate him and begin identifying areas where the two countries could work together. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan traveled to Brazil for meetings with then President-elect, all those impacted. We remain in close contact with our Turkish allies at every level of food. As of this morning, we would refer to President Lula to speak to his ideas.
That there is parents. He will also meet with the leaders of the
distributing humanitarian assistance in Syria. Yesterday, the Department of Treasury, I think. I think I updated as much as I could right now. What we're doing is what I put in my opening statement. You're right that there are naval assets that are in the Mediterranean and propulsion capability. That's why we're calling this thing an object. And
guys about how to bring this to the UN to figure out what to do?
we are talking to dozens of nations who we know have been overflown by Chinese surveillance balloons. Part of this, it will always act.
Okay, I'm back. Y'all, I think this is going to be interesting. I think this is going to be very interesting to see what happens with this, because I just noticed that he said that the UN as well, they're meeting with the UN because I guess surveillance balloons have been spotted over other countries, I guess. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting. So what do y'all think? Like I said, the link is out there. You're welcome to come up. Thank you so much, Shabbat Shalom, for your super chat. What are y'all's thoughts? Give me insight. I'm leaving the floor open. Come on up if y'all want to. If not, I know that Teo has a live in the next 30 minutes. So what are y'all's thoughts? Let me see. Put some of these comments in. I don't think, let me see. Newsberg told me that. Yeah, 30 minutes ago. So I'm not really prepared to just talk right now because when I saw this, I said, I just want to play the video. So y'all, I am going to, something is up. I think something is up and I'm not going to say they're not telling us. I don't think they can tell us. I don't think it's a hoax. I think the thing is they're hiding something. I'll say that much. I think something has transpired and they're not telling the whole story. They're telling pieces of it because I don't think they have enough information too. I don't think they can say anything because again, they have to watch what they say because if people found out what was really going on, it will go into mad chaos. So they have to manage that. But to a point I agree, to a point I don't agree. So, but I don't think it's a hoax. I don't. I think it's some stuff really going down, and I think it's some stuff that These countries, they done pissed somebody off in so many words. Somebody pissed off and they mad. They want their money. Not to mention, U.S. is in debt to China. I think like 17-20% of the U.S. debt is, I think it's that much, is the debt going to China. The other debt is, some of the debt is some of the debt that they owe us. I'm going to be honest. What are y'all thoughts? Up next is hilarious. Yeah, I think this is going to be an interesting year with the layoffs, with these companies having financial issues, with the Chinese bubble, and the whole thing with China and Taiwan. I believe some of that is some Taiwan is dealing with Taiwan. What else? What's going on with Russia? It's a lot. It's a lot going on. Birth pains, y'all, and birth pains increasing. Oh, let me see. Let me see. Yep. 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 I'm trusting them too. Crazy thing is, I'm not worried. I'm not worried. This is more interesting than anything. It's interesting to see how everything is transpiring. It's very interesting. Very, very interesting to see. It looks like it's gonna be more, news like this coming. I don't think this is gonna be a one shot deal and that's it. I think it's gonna be some more stuff coming. I don't think China. Up next. That's how I feel. Like popcorn ready. Popcorn ready, cause it's about to get real. It's about to get real, cause yeah, it is real. Yeah, this is Have you ever seen the movie Red Dawn? Oh man, how they snuck in. That's interesting. Uh, then not to mention inside fighting, internal fighting. I heard that it was a conflict at the last State of the Union between the Republican and the Democrats. Then you got these white supremacists that was planning a sneak attack, and it was going to shut off the power grid. It was going to shut the power grid down in Baltimore, and I think in some other. I don't know if it's in other states or cities, but the only thing I saw was in Baltimore. So it's interesting. I'll say that much. It's very interesting. And then not to mention, if they keep on laying these people off from these jobs, folks gonna be in the middle of the street screaming in just a second. And these companies is steadily laying folks off. So yeah. Yeah, it's about to go down. Yeah, they tried to hit Washington and Oregon. I heard that too. I heard that. What? Somebody said, I love you, baby. Oh my gosh, that was funny. Somebody said, I love you, baby mama. Okay. If I'm baby mama, please send a check to Cash App me child support. Um, Y'all, this gonna be interesting. This is gonna be, man, this is going, and it's interesting. I'm not scared. It's just like, it's interesting. It's interesting to see what's gonna happen. It's gonna be interesting. Okay. What's up, Leo?
What's going on? What's going on?
Not much.
Good subject. The reason I wanted to jump on is
my personal belief, it's either I don't know how y'all feel about psyops over here, but again, sister, thank you for letting me on. But I believe this is either a psyop to move us into war with China full blown, and start within Taiwan as a like forefront, and then possible invasion from China on California coastline. But that's way down the road. But I would just say it's just interesting the timing of the second one, because we haven't seen one of these balloons fly over here and it was like mainstream or known ever, really, not too much. In at least the last 20 or 30 years, we haven't heard too much. So that's why I was saying it's just interesting the timing of the second one was a week after, 7 days.
Yeah.
We have a second one, yet we haven't seen we haven't seen anything like this before. How did that second one come so soon? To me, it's like setting up conditioning of more things to come.
Yep.
But one thing I want to say, if anybody's into preparedness, not saying be fearful, but be prepared. Have y'all at least 90 days worth of food, water. If you have alternative energy, for sure have that, because these type of balloons have been connected to CMEs, and I didn't say CMEs, EMP, to where it's possible that if it floats over the middle part of the United States, it can knock the power grid out. So just be prepared for that. Not saying be fearful, but just think they're conditioning us for something. So just be mindful of it.
Hey, Bruce. Thank you, Leo. What's up, Bruce?
Hey, Sister, shalom to everyone. I, when I was in Army, I was in military intelligence. Then I was an NBC specialist, nuclear biological chemical specialist. And so, as the first balloon came over the United States and went through Canada, came over the United States, I'm thinking to myself, they already know this, because they have satellite systems literally that can read a dime on the ground.
Wow.
Yes, they have satellites that can actually read a dime on the ground. So I'm thinking to myself, what is going on? It just doesn't even make any sense. United States could have been knocked that out. As a matter of fact, the military don't even have to get the permission of the president for a pending threat. So I'm thinking, like, what is going on here? What's going on here? It just don't make any sense to me. And then I was thinking to myself, then I started thinking back in World War I, when they sunk the Lusitania, when Churchill, and I think that was a false flag to bring the United States into the war. And so and then it was create such an uproar. It was like conditioning the people to prepare for war, to American people, that these people are so evil that this is what they did. So what I'm saying is, I think this is like a propaganda campaign for the masses, because if you notice, it's been on social media, it's been on all the nightly news. They're trying to condition the American people, because eventually we're going to war, and they're trying to condition the American people to prepare for war. And when we go, it won't be that much of a fight for, from the American masses to be like, no, we don't need to go to war. So they're conditioned as saying you putting spy plans over us, so no, this justified for us going to war because it's a threat. And just like they did in World War II, prior to the United States entering into the war, America was neutral, and actually we were really siding with Germany, according to Benjamin Freeman. And then when they flipped it, then they started bringing in papers, they're killing babies and they doing all that. So they were conditioning the American people to prepare for war. So going back to World War I, when they sunk the Lusitania through Churchill, actually I think was a false flag to bring the United States into World War I through Colonel House and J.P. Morgan. And then when that happened, the American people were prepared to go to war. There wouldn't be no fight. So in the military, nowhere eventually we're going to war. And so same thing in World War II, they had to condition, it's like military propaganda. And so they're preparing the people to say, no, you violate our airspace. You got balloons over here that could possibly do an EMP or nuclear bomb or chemical weapon. So they're preparing the American people, because I'm telling you, Sister E family, this doesn't make any sense. And so when it came to me that this is propaganda building us up, and watch and see, it's going to be another one, and then it's going to be an incident to prepare us to go to war. This is a propaganda. This is a conditioning of the people to have their minds set to go to war, so we won't be coming against the Congress and the president when they initiate that declaration of war. That's how I see it. But a lot of people don't see that. But that's what they have always did. That's what they. Matter of fact, they did it in. They did it in the 1800s too. There's always something that they do to prepare the American people for war, and so we can be galvanized to support our government's move. So I just want everybody to think on that, because I'm telling you, it doesn't make any sense. Especially that first one. I was like, why wouldn't they shoot it down? Or we're just watching it. Or it's not a threat. I know you know it's a threat because you got satellites to see what, you can probably read the serial numbers on that thing from our satellites. So I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Now here comes another one. So they're preparing the American people. They're trying to galvanize the American people. This is like military propaganda warfare to prepare the masses for war when we do go to war, whether it be Russia, Iran, or China. That's how I see it.
And don't they make money when we go to war? Because right now we're in a financial bind right now.
Oh yeah, the military industrial complex that they itching to go to war. So yeah, so I just wanted to say that, Sister, because I'm at work, but I had to drop in because I was listening to your I was sneaking listening to your thing, but I just wanted to pass that on for people. So now, so watch for another incident or an incident where some ship or some airline get knocked down to further condition us for the atmosphere of war. And that's what they're doing with these balloons. And some other incidents going to happen. It's the playbook they've used. They use a false flag first. And, just like 9/11. Well, I ain't going to go there, but same thing. So I just want to pass that along, family. Just keep your ears open and think outside the box, because that's what they do. Okay?
Crazy.
All righty.
Thank you, Boo.
Shalom. You're welcome.
Shalom, everyone.
Hey, daughter Zion.
Hey, I just want to pop on really, really quick just to confirm what Brother Leo and Brother Bruce were saying, because I watch a channel called Canadian Prepper, and he's a what do you call it, agnostic. So he had a guest on there the other day, and the guest is a military person, knows everybody and their mama, and still is kind of involved. And he was saying about the balloons that they can easily detect those balloons. And he said that also when the balloon was over the islands, I can't remember what islands it was, but they could have shot it down then. And then they decided to wait till it got over the silo missiles, then they shot it down. And then the man was also saying that it can carry a EMP, like Brother Leo said, and also can carry nuclear stuff too. So it's like everybody's saying, what are you trying to do? Like, what are you up to? And United States is so, like you said, in trouble with people and doing stuff behind the scene. They so scary. They think somebody creeping up on them, which they really are. So I just wanted to just add that real quick.
I agree with you. This Leo, I think Canadian Prepper is a great guy. I've actually been watching his videos since he started, like 8-9 years ago. But I would say for the balloons now, Bruce actually is weird. I'm agreeing with Bruce. Be prepared to see more. But I think the biggest thing for me is the object itself and what it symbolizes. So just be prepared for, like I said, possible power grid issues on the West Coast. You'll start seeing a lot more things happening because, like you said, it's coming from the West. He says the guy says it's coming from the Northeast. So it's coming from the Northeast. It was in Alaska. Where is that coming from? Directionally, or where is it going to? So that's why I was just start thinking they're setting up, and don't just think it's China, y'all. I'm just saying, y'all, Russia over there and North Korea over there. So just be prepared. I'm more actually keen to possibly be in North Korea because they are kind of like the proxy for China. But I think it could be a laddered effect to where, like Bruce said, kind of don't just be aware of the enemies they are listing or telling us are our enemies. I would say North Korea, China, possibly Russia, all connected, and North Korea could be the proxy to start war with China eventually, and that can move to Taiwan. So just I'll say stay prepped up if y'all have preps or into that stuff.
Mhm.
But also, y'all gonna see a lot more of this. And like I said, if y'all in certain areas, man, y'all might start seeing more power outages, more power surges, and more things come out, rolling blackouts and things like that to cover the panic. So you may not see the panic because they don't, like kind of what Sister E said earlier. They're not going to come out and say, "Oh man, they coming to get us." Oh
Yeah.
man, we getting attacked and all. They're not going to say that. So they may be like, "We haven't experienced rolling blackouts in certain regions. Please have water and stuff on hand." They might come to clean it up, but there's actual warfare going on. But like, and also since he mentioned Red Dawn, there's been a lot of
Yes.
propaganda. There's been a lot of
Yes.
propaganda through the decades of possible invasion on the California coastline. Just saying, the timing of all this, where all these balloons are coming from, they prepping for something. So just be aware, y'all.
If anything go down, first thing I'm gonna do is hop in that car and head on out. I'm leaving.
Yep.
You know, I
Inner
would say
cities,
that. If
man.
you live in the inner city and you see something on the news, that's an indicator that something's going down. It ain't gonna hurt to just say, you know what? Let me go visit some family, and then just make a nice little trip and head on out and just kind of
Man.
monitor what's going on. Because I agree with you. I see them going over to California in that area. But who's to say they're gonna whip around and come over here in New York? Or like I said, if we see anything, I would say go somewhere that's a little, you know,
Rule.
less, yeah. Come out of, you know, if you got a family member that live in the country, go visit them for about a week.
Yep.
So,
And I don't know about y'all. I know Canadian Prepper, you mentioned him earlier.
Yeah.
He's big. He's in Canada and he pretty much speaks to like low population densities and strategic relocation. Like I'm into all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So like learning that like, hey, like I live in Detroit, in the city. Like I'm in Detroit and it's kind of densely populated. But I know if the grid went down, it's gonna be mayhem around here. So like that would be kind of the thing is like either to leave the cities or if y'all
Hunker
can't
down.
afford, get a bug out location and then
Mhm.
and just take routine trips there just to be prepared. Like I said, don't be fearful, but this is like practice. Like I know for me, this is actually making me want to practice a little more. Like, hey, this weekend we going without power this weekend. We just gonna see how we gonna rough it out, see what happens. Just to slowly start conditioning us a little bit better to, hey, what if something went out? What if the power went out? How are we ready for that? This weekend from Friday to Sunday, how are we gonna work with no power? Just slowly conditioning ourselves to go without a little bit. So
yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting to see what's gonna happen.
you think we gonna go to war?
I mean, something's going to be triggered.
I say yes because it seems like the Most High does stuff on like the feast days, and Passover is coming up soon. Like, isn't it April the 5th through the 13th? I'm gonna make sure, but Passover is coming up soon, so that makes me think something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think something is happening.
For sure.
I think this is the time for us to kind of look and see what's going on in the news, kind of skim. We got alerts. Pay attention to your alerts on your phone. If you got the Citizen app, download the Citizen app while we have access to apps. Because if something happens, the Citizen app hits everybody. Unless the grid goes down. But yeah.
Have y'all let me see. There's a lot of videos. Like also notice the timing. I know I'm getting real conspiratorial now, but just notice the timing of movies and TV shows too during events like this. Example is Last of Us is out right now. If you understand what The Last of Us is,
Yeah.
post
Yes.
apocalyptic type world. Okay,
Yeah,
Last of Us
I've
is
been
out.
watching that. The fungal attack.
Yes, there's a lot of movies coming out this year that are very interesting. Also, notice the F-22. Only reason I know what F-22, I'm sad to say, is because I watched Maverick recently. You remember Maverick Top Gun, the movie? Now, Maverick Top Gun, where were they going? It's a lot of stuff, just understanding of there's a lot of talking about fighter planes and all this stuff. I think there's a lot of conditioning going on. And in Maverick, the movie, they're talking about drones and drones slowly taking over for the new warfare to come. But like I would say, like, just be mindful. There's definitely some stuff setting up. I think we possibly are going to war to help Taiwan. Like, I think all of this is moving towards a war in Taiwan with North Korea playing a part in it as well. But it's not gonna be no full blown like we're gonna have a draft and stuff. I don't know about that, but I do feel we're gonna be deploying some folks out there. So that's gonna be interesting. So be mindful. I
Yep.
do feel like if y'all not in the preparedness, I would say at least if y'all not in the cannon or just buy a little canned goods. You don't just say go crazy, nothing. I would say the idea is every time you go to the store and get you something, if you got $6-7, get you an extra case of water.
Yep.
If you got a little extra money, buy you a couple canned goods that you like, fruits and veggies. Just buy them and have them. Just, you never know. Like I said, if you're gonna bug out though, you're gonna have to have a bug out bag, have gas in your car, have a map, not a phone map. You're gonna have to have a physical map and be ready to make that move. But yeah, I'll say slowly but surely, just take little precautions. This type of news should make us step it a little bit and just pay more attention. That's all.
Yeah, it's gonna be
Well,
interesting.
well, fam, I got to go. I got to get back to my babies, but I just want to just
All
pop
right,
over quick and just let y'all know. That's all.
all right. Thank y'all for joining us. I think Teo is going live here soon. What time is his live? Hold on. Because I got a notification. So I'll probably hop back out here tonight. Yeah, he going live in the next 5 minutes. So I'll hop back out here tonight. Thank y'all so much for coming on. Like I said, I'll talk about it tonight, but I'll be watching the news as well. So if y'all see me just pop up out the blue, just know I'm popping up out the blue because something else can pop up. So just be aware, be watchful. If you check your notification and just be aware. But if you see me just pop up and you see something that says live news, hop on because I'm gonna play what's going on. So all right, family. Well, thank y'all so much for y'all support. Let's go support our brother Tayu. Have a good one.